wanted to show you a video of little local drama. What happens when neighbors don't get along on the Canadian prairie. Coyote has discovered a free steak and it's called his friends, and the deers are not that impressed. It's kind of a Mexican standoff but with a prairie flavor. And they sat like this for about 20 minutes until my son-in-law showed up with his rifle, and that dispersed the crowd. That's life on the prairies. Welcome to Not Factory Approved, the site where I show many different projects. Some make sense, some don't. Today's project, I took this $2 vacuum cleaner, Shop Vac, and turned it into an $8 Shop Vac. I bought it for $2. It had noisy bearings and a little bit of roughness on the commutator, so there was some arcing. And I've spent 3 times as much as I paid for it to fix it. Some people say that makes sense. Some people say it's crazy. I never said I was the sharpest knife in the drawer. They're getting quite annoying. They're just too noisy. So I've taken out 4 of the screws that hold it together. There's 2 left. They're a hex top screw with a slot. Rusty as anything. And they appear to be 7.5 millimeter. I see now there's a 3rd one here as well. That's probably going to have to come off too. We'll see. Anyway, I have tried pushing hard on the socket, and it has removed 4 of them. I've tried the slot screwdriver. I've tried chiseling out the rust. I've tried tapping the screws. I've tried. I haven't tried a vice grip yet. I have tried pump pliers or slip joint pliers. That hasn't worked. I will try the vice grip. Need one that has some kind of jaw that pinches together. This is the only one I can find. I have several of them that has that kind of jaw. So the thing now is to push down and clamp it and see if I can get some traction on this. And I don't think that moved. A little bit tighter, push down. Nope, that's jumping off. This one is too tight for that. Next thing I will try is a side cutter. Sometimes that will work. If that doesn't work, I will try a chisel. So now to try the side cutter. I will try and pinch the screw with those 2 points. Sometimes you get on it just enough to turn it. I'm away from the slot. I don't want that point of weakness. The vise is doing a poor job of holding these screws, but it's better than I can do between my legs or on the floor. Who decides to use 7.5 millimeter nuts? I'm not sure. Screws? I'm not sure. In my long history, I've never seen that size. Okay, that's not working. Now to try the chisel. It's chewing it up nicely. See if I can shift it at all. In the plastic, get rid of some of the rust. Well, now what? It's turning. There we go. I can shift this other one. Not yet. Just starting to move. Try the socket again. There we go. Lovely, isn't it? There's just enough taper on the end of this socket to get a minimal grip on that, and it's very minimal. But now that I've shifted it loose a bit, I was able to get it the rest of the way out with that. And same with this one. I couldn't touch them before. I will be replacing these screws. Okay, yeah, another one has to come off too. Let's go right to the crudest method. There it is right there on the bottom. This might be the worst one. Nope. Got it. Useless. That's like a big ping pong ball. Use a little cleaning too. That's that and that. Now to get this out. You hear that? They are terrible. So I'll take the fan off and then see what else I have to do to get the motor out of there. These are what's known as universal motors. The theory is that they can work on AC or DC. I've never actually tried it. The top of this is aluminum and steel shaft on the motor, steel nut, rusted like crazy. So this has lots of potential for disaster. I'll try it not too hot. Keep it pretty small. So watch carefully. You can see I've caused some damage here to the fan. See how I can correct that. I'll use this Dremel, these neat little grinder discs. To release them, you pull down on that bit, lift, turn 90 degrees, comes off. Likewise, put it back on. They lock in position quite nicely. They don't slip. So I've cut the nut that way. Let's see if I can chisel it off of there. I might have to cut it one more time. So now I've cut two sides. So that little piece should chip off. Cut a little as possible away from the threads. And hopefully I can pull that piece off too. The nut was actually spinning, the shaft was spinning on the fan, so it wasn't holding anything. So I was not able to get the nut free. I might have to use some heat on that. These type of rivets are basically just a blade, and they chisel them, and then it spreads it. So I'll push that together, re-chisel those so that they rebond. And then it's just a case of straightening some of the bent metal. It should be okay. Although it does turn at high RPM. Well, 3 more screws. These are Phillips, and they're also full of rust. So what I've done is I sprayed them with a bit of oil, took this bit, tapped it in, try and make the groove obvious. It's almost there. And I did some with this finer one minor Phillips. Help squeeze some of the rust out of there. You feel it starting to grip now. Push down hard. There it is. There's one of them. Looks pretty ugly. Looking pretty ugly. So it might have only been worth $2. But what I will do is clean up that commutator after I check the price of these bearings. And if they're too much, I just won't bother. If they're cheap, then I'll replace them and I'll clean up the commutator and put it back together. I've done it before with other vacuum cleaners and they work much better afterwards. Well, we got the bearing off. This motor is cheap enough that it has a bushing on the other end. So that doesn't have to be replaced. That's still actually pretty tight. Just needs oiling. But this, there's nothing left of this. It's hard to even turn it. All full of rust. So let's see what that's worth. This is the blower portion from the universal motor to the vacuum cleaner. This is where it was all bent. Straightened it out a little bit. The wedges I was talking about before are these stand-up pieces here. Go from one side to the other. And what you do is you, once you pop them free, put them back together, you take a chisel and split just the top of it a bit. That spreads it. And then you can use a small punch each side and push it to hold. That's holding now. I'm going to try and straighten it a little bit more, not stress it. This turns at about 10,000 RPM. That's why this little fan creates such good suction on a shop vac. Back to reassembly. The bearings have come in. So I ran this on the poor man's lathe, the drill press, with just some emery cloth. Made sure it's all clean between the segments. Put a little more oil into this bushing. Usually there's a felt lining inside around the bushing itself to retain oil. So that spins pretty nicely. Now to put the bearing on and finish reassembly. I'll have to do something with the brushes there. Might just be a case of wire to pull them out. I might be able to remove the housing. I haven't really looked at it yet. This was all tarnished, so I removed the tarnish. Now the bearing will slide on there. Before it wouldn't, it was quite tight. A bit of corrosion that was on there. So that all has to go together. I bought two different bearings. One more closely matches this, but this one is just a little bit bigger, so it slides on too easily. That won't last in a high RPM situation. But I bought this thicker one, which has now disappeared. It's in my hand. That's the problem with old age. So this now will go on, and that should work, because this one, with this spacer that was on there originally, is the same thickness. So that should work. I'll put some oil on the shaft, put the bearing on, and see if I can get it back into the motor without damaging something. First thing I'll try is using my finger as a spacer. If I can get the bearing to hold the brushes away. So it's around the shaft now. Just get my small screwdriver or a nylon paintbrush. Any port in a storm. There. So that part. It's sliding in. Okay, so that's the first problem. It doesn't line up properly with the brushes and the commutator at the moment. We'll have another look at that. So what I did to use a bigger bearing, the alignment was all incorrect. So I took the retainer clip out, so then I tapped the bearing down, and now the brushes line up, and that should be about right. So we'll see how that fits together. I think it'll be all right. Okay, it spins easily, lined up well, commutator looks good, and it goes into here, and I marked where the bracket goes on the winding, but I did not mark where the alignment of the motor. So I might have to change that, but put it in here to start with. See how the wires hook up. Now I have to get some new screws as well. This is the ground for the bracket back here, ground screw. Okay, dig through the sheet metal screws since I don't have any plastic tap screws. So there it is back in. I had to turn it around, which is not too surprising. So this goes, the switch goes on the opposite side to the hose, of course. The wires. It snaps into place. Gets held there with a tab, and there with the tab. Now to hook up the wires, take it out one more time. The wires push into the brushes, and the recess is a bit tight there now, so rather than fighting with it, I found these 3/4 inch number 8 stainless steel screws, so they're perfect. There we go. White goes into this one according to my labels. It goes in there like that. It gets held in when it's screwed in place. And this one, just take a bit of corrosion off of that. A little shinier. The spade connector for this one fits down inside here. It goes on both sides of the wire. Broke. So this is what it, I don't dare take that out. That one might break too. So I will replace this, and I'll make one using this small eyelet crimp-on connector. Just cut it off. Trim it back about 1/4 inch. The right size stripper wire size. Put this on, fits nicely, and then crimp it so it's split here. So I don't want this on the split side. I'll put that on the other side. Otherwise it will just spread it. There, that's on. I'll cut it in the middle, and I'll get a needle nose, and I'll straighten those out and push them in. So I've cut it, I straightened these forks, crimped it so it will fit down inside the groove, and it will go either side of the wire. I'm going to have to bend it 90 degrees or it's not going to go in there. So let's see if that's got sufficient clearance. Seems like it should be okay. Looks like it's in there, held in place. Shouldn't be a problem. Now for the 4th time to do these up. That's the trouble with being self-taught. Your instructor doesn't know what they're talking about. Okay, let's see what kind of smoke we get. I think it's quieter. It's a little hard to compare that with when it's actually in the housing, but that's the next step. There's a trick to this, I see. Sequence is important. And this, as oddball as it looks, has to go in that far or it doesn't fit. And then the cord is held at the end. But I have to put the cover on before I mount this on the housing. Number 5, I think. And then it doesn't, oh, there we go. Drops right in if you get the right place. And then that to there. There, that's good. Now we have to put this on. Got the decrepit washers. I think I'll at least wire brush them. Found a set of these at KMS Tools. Look alright. It was $9.50. So it should work well for this. I can't hold this shaft and do up the nut at the same time. Try it forward. There we go. It's on. Now it's scraping. Yeah. Give this a slight dish and then straighten it. That should work. And then I better go clean up to get lunch at my daughter's. I've got to get some small screws for that too. So, after lunch, I have these number 4 by 3/8 of an inch sheet metal screws. Take the yellow Robertson head. And they go right in there. And then this goes on here. Fortunately, there's a footprint in the dust where it's at before. It goes like that. Should be just fine. It slipped down when it was in use for about 30 seconds. So I took the drill press again and I ran a hacksaw, these ones that aren't braced on both ends, to get into tight places, and I cut a groove there for this circlip. The originally was there. So now I've moved it to there, and that will stop the bearing from touching the commutator. Here is one resurrected shop vac, worth all of the $8.